Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Indie Pop Girl, the podcast for music chat, new releases, hidden gems, and nostalgic deep dives. I am back with another brand new release review, and I will be discussing Petal, the highly anticipated project from pop superstar Ariana Grande. And before we get into the episode, if you enjoy music discussions like this, please consider following the podcast or leaving a like, depending on where you're listening. It really helps the show reach more people, and it means a lot for a small independent podcast like this one. Petal is the 8th studio album by Ariana Grande. It was released on the 31st of July 2026 through Republic Records and her own imprint, Baby Doll Music. Grande wrote all of the lyrics for the project, and she worked with Ilya for the instrumentation and arrangements. The production is handled by Ariana and Ilya, with some additional production from Max Martin and David Rossi. It is the follow-up to her previous release, Eternal Sunshine from 2024, which I have covered on the podcast as part of the Underrated Gem series, if you are interested to hear my thoughts on that project. The title of the album is based on the metaphor of petal in the pavement. Ari has confirmed that Petal is a little feral in an Instagram post. She described the title and themes of Petal as something that is full of life, growing through the cracks of something cold, hard and challenging. Ari tackles the mental turmoil of painful breakups. Many of the songs reflect on ex-partners and the critique of scrutiny and the negative side of fame. I think it continues with the themes that she explored in Eternal Sunshine, but Ari explained that with Petal, it's come from a place that maybe she was too shy or polite to tap into before. She said that the album is like, fuck it, and I love that. I read that the album is more experimental than her previous work, and that got me really intrigued. I also read that Ari explained that much of the lyrics were written from an unfiltered rage, and with that process, she resisted from softening her lyrics and presenting them in their rawest form. Again, that got me intrigued too. I just had a feeling that when the vinyl pre-order was announced and the artwork was revealed, that this project was going to be completely different. Red was a reoccurring theme that was threaded into Eternal Sunshine's artwork and photography, but with Petal, everything is muted. The photography is monochrome with lots of black and white and cloudy grey present. This already tells me that this record is going to be understated and full of melancholy. It feels like the songs are going to be moodier and a project which will slowly start to reveal itself in layers gradually over time. I saw a lot of negative discourse online during the morning of release day, all across social media platforms and on AOTY. Now, of course, music, as we all know, is subjective and we all can't like the same thing. My first experience with Petal was on vinyl during release day, and I let that listening experience digest before I returned back to it. I have sat with the album over the course of the weekend and during the early part of this week, so my review will be based on that. I will capture as much as I can, and as always, I will be honest in my review. I just want to say that it's important to let a new project fully breathe before having that opinion. Some albums will be instant, and some might take some time. And you know what? There will always be the albums that you just don't connect to, and that is completely okay. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I will not be playing clips of the songs, so if you are curious, please support the artists I cover by streaming, downloading, or buying physical copies. Thank you. And just a quick disclaimer, this episode contains adult themes and I will be discussing some explicit lyrics. So if that isn't your cup of tea, then please take care while listening or feel free to skip. Also, I won't be discussing anything related to Ariana's decision to take a break from the public eye. This is strictly a review about the music and the music only. Thank you. Track 1, Kiss Me. As soon as the needle dropped on release day when I was listening to the vinyl, I knew that this record is something that I was going to dig sonically. That intro made me ascend. I really wasn't expecting that for the opening track, but I'm here for it. The layering with the synths and how it's arranged feels like a rebirth or entering a new phase. The build and how it sounds really reminds me of The Weeknd and how Abel incorporates dark synths into his work. They have collaborated in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ari has taken some sonic inspiration from Abel for Petal. Lyrically, Ari captures a deep sense of desperation. She wants her partner to kiss her like it's the last. She sings in the chorus, "Kiss me like you know this is goodbye." She craves that connection, that desire to be wanted. The dreamy, dark atmosphere that this track creates perfectly matches that desperation. I feel that the heavy, dark synths create some tension in the track, and yes, Ari's vocals are light and airy, and it feels like you're floating on clouds. But at the same time, it feels like there is some darkness lurking in the shadows, and I love the contrast of that. I love how Ari's vocals are mixed. She uses a restrained vocal performance, but the vocal layering is absolutely stunning. She's drenched in reverb in places, and it adds to that dreaminess. She takes that brooding sound from The Weeknd and the synth pop energy and turns it into a desperate plea for connection. I would not be surprised if this track ends up in my top songs of the year just for the production alone. Track 2, Hate That I Made You Love Me. This track was released as a lead single back in May, and I really appreciate that Ari made the decision not to release 2 or 3 singles before the album was released. I held off from listening to this properly as I wanted to experience it within the context of the album. This is experimental for her, and I completely understand why some people were a little confused when this track dropped. I did hear a snippet of the synths from the intro. It feels like the track is emerging from underwater. The bubbling synths create an unsettling atmosphere, and the track instantly reminded me of Submarine by the Marias. It has the same underwater feeling about it. On the surface, it frames a standard breakup anthem. In the chorus, she takes a direct swipe at a former lover, singing, "I hate that I made you love me, 'cause I barely tried." But I think there is much more to unpack that is lingering on the surface. I think Ari is also talking about her relationship with the public and criticism. I think the bridge explores that, and she addresses the intense media scrutiny and entitlement by asking, "Why you so hate to see women endure? Is it really my fault? You all gave me your hearts of your own accord." There is a sense of unease running through the song, even with the melody and Ari's decision to deliver the track with a lower vocal. What I really appreciate is how subtle it is. She could have delivered a proper full on banger, but to introduce this new era with experimentation and to strip away her signature vocal power is an artistic statement for sure. I think there is intention behind that, and it feels as if Ari doesn't need to prove herself as a vocalist. We all know she can deliver, but there is something refreshing about stripping it all back and letting her vocal texture and electronic production truly shine. Track 3, Petal. The first thing that stood out to me with the title track is the opening lines of trying to feel something real, to cry again. They say the artist needs tears. In 2018, No Tears Left to Cry from her Sweetener album was a hopeful, uplifting anthem written after immense trauma. Ari was forcing herself to move forward, actively choosing joy and declaring she was all out of tears. 8 years later, the opening lines of Petal completely flip that narrative. Ari wants to feel raw emotion again, even if it's painful emotion. She needs that to fuel her art. I have mentioned previously on the podcast that the artist must suffer for their art, or that an artist often writes their best material after experiencing a heartbreak or personal trauma. It's a fascinating full circle moment for her at this point in her career. She talks about the petal in the pavement, and I feel that Ari needs her tears like rain to help her petal grow. She confirms in the chorus that it's such a fuck situation, but long as she gets the ovation each night, heartbreak won't bite. This is paradise. The validation from her fans and audience every night can be addicting, that they are there to see you. Ari knows that, and the praise and love from performing can help overcome her pain and heartbreak. Sonically, it shifts away from the dark synth pop from the previous two tracks. Petal leans more into R&B, and Ari's vocal style really reminded me of SZA. There is some sassiness and confidence present, and I love how she delivers the lines of, but I am not the victim, bitch. I'm practically drowning in my blessings. It feels like she's carrying emotional weight, but Ari is owning it. It goes back to her performing for her fans. She is able to carry that heavy emotional weight and to mask it all for performing. And I have to mention the music video. Wow. I don't know for sure, but the video must be a homage to the film The Substance. That film fucking blew my mind, and seeing the Petal video with the Walk of Fame star and the bloody imagery feels like Ari is tapping into the themes of The Substance, the toxic obsession to go back who you used to be. Her character of Pepper faces a toxic Hollywood audition panel, which is reminiscent of the Dennis Quaid character in The Substance. I love how she goes full on American Psycho with a chainsaw. Ari has talked about her love for horror films, and I love that she is exploring her love for the genre through the music videos for this era. Track 4, Stay. I would say that this track is classic Ariana. It's up tempo and is less experimental. It feels more straightforward compared to some of the other tracks, and I wasn't sure about it on first listen. But the more I've sat with it, the more it has grown on me. I think Stay serves as a sonic palette cleanser, and in a record that is quite downbeat and moody, there is a little bit of pop optimism here. To be honest, I don't have a lot to say about the track. Lyrically, it's quite straightforward. Ari is talking about trust issues in a relationship, and I feel the repetition with the "I just want to stay this time" is her trying to get her message across to this person. She wants reassurance from her partner as well and asks the question, "But can you keep me safe this time?" I think it's placed well in the track list, but there are other songs which I prefer more than this one. I am not saying that I don't like it or anything, but my taste just gravitates towards the more experimental and darker moments. I will, of course, give it more time with my repeated listens. Some tracks work like that, and sometimes it just takes some patience, and that's okay. Track 5, Oh Well. As soon as I saw David Rossi's name on the production credits for this track, I was very intrigued. If you are listening and are a fan of golf rap, then you will know that David was part of the golf rap touring band from 2000 to 2013. He is classically trained and a multi instrumentalist, and really puts his stamp on this track with the lovely string work, which is his area that I feel he excels in. Sonically, there is a shift from the previous four tracks, and this dabbles in drum and bass and has elements of UK garage. Lyrically, Ari is targeting this track to an ex lover, and at the same time, she's sticking her middle finger up to her critics. I love the line in the pre chorus of, "But don't worry, 'cause you'll keep getting breakup songs about you." She's bringing the sass in this track, but she is also turning the situation into her own personal healing. I think Ari feels that writing lyrics is her way of releasing inner thoughts, negative attachments, and unleashing that unfiltered rage that inspired her writing on Petal. I think she is also addressing the media, fair weather friends, and critics who seem to have an opinion on her every move. There seems to be some evolution with her moving on with this track. In Thank You Next, Ari processed her pain through gratitude. She named her exes and thanked them directly. She turned the breakups into something positive, which helped her to heal from the heartbreak. But in Oh Well, Ari has run out of gratitude. There are no thank yous or lessons being celebrated here. Instead, she delivers the ultimate dismissive line: "Good luck on your way to hell. Oh well." It's something simple but delivered like a shoulder shrug, and Ari just saying, "Fuck it, whatever," and then just moving on. Track 6, Big Feelings. As we reach the halfway point in the record, it's also the point where Ari gets freaky and brings back the playfulness that she explored in Positions. There are double entendres all over this track, and I am here for it. One of the criticisms that I read about this record is that it's quite difficult to understand Ari's vocals at times. Unlike Eternal Sunshine, where her vocals are crystal clear, I will admit I had to follow the lyrics because I was struggling a bit. I didn't catch fully all of the lyrics when I was listening on vinyl, but to be honest, it is so obvious what she is talking about here. I love it when female artists incorporate sexual lyrics into their work, and I'm happy to report that Ari does not hold back here. I did gasp a bit at the "Pussy so sweet, a tear fell from his eye" line, but Ari did confirm that this album was going to be a bit feral, and I feel this is what she is talking about. Now, you can take whatever from that line, but to me, it reads that the physical intimacy is so intense and overwhelming that it evokes the emotional response from her partner in that moment. I could be completely off the mark here, but I also read that line as a metaphor for oral sex. But that is the magic here. You can take away whatever connects to you and what your own interpretation is. Ari is flexing and holds all of the confidence in this relationship dynamic. She follows it with the line, "Don't have to lift a finger." This tells us that she holds all of the sexual power in the bedroom. She is fully in control, and her lover is the one who is the emotional mess. And to have an experience that intense with a partner, that is so fucking hot. And I applaud Ari for this honesty. She's flipping the narrative that men shouldn't get in their feels and be emotional during sex. I say fuck that. If you are on the same page, body and mind, it doesn't matter what sex you are. I find this so refreshing and empowering, and I love how direct she is in this track. She later confirms, "This sex is about to make a grown man cry," which perfectly follows on from the "pussy so sweet, a tear fell from his eye" line. The track is called Big Feelings, and these lines solidify the core essence of the song. These are huge statements that Ari is making, but there is no arrogance here. Ari is expressing her self confidence sexually, but at the same time, she is reassuring her lover and providing a safe space for them. Yes, this track is sexual, but Ari balances that desire with lines like, "'Cause boy, I love you so therapeutically." That shows Ari's caring and nurturing side. This isn't simply no strings attached sex. She wants to feel connection, to heal, and to be a comforting escape for her partner. If you're listening right now and enjoying this is your cue to hit like before you forget. I really do appreciate all of the support. Thank you. Track 7, Freak. As soon as I heard this track on release day playing my copy of the vinyl, I knew that this song would be one of my highlights. I don't know if it's the melody or the guitar, but something about the track sounds off. It kind of feels unsettling, and that's why it stood out to me. It reminds me of Imperfect for You from Eternal Sunshine. Both songs definitely belong together. The track blends elements of dream pop, but it's also atmospheric and eerie. This is probably my favourite Ari vocal performance on the entire record. It's so gorgeous and flawless. Lyrically, the track centres on the pressures of a public relationship and the desire for privacy from intrusive media, flipping the term freak to describe the scrutinising public. The lyrics express a desperate need to escape with a partner to a safe space, away from the critics and the toxic noise. The line in verse 2 of "Wake me when all this shit is over" really captures that sense of psychological exhaustion and burnout. She doesn't want to deal with anything and would rather feel numb and wait for the storm to all blow over. This track stands out to me through the production. I love when the beat comes in during verse 2. It sounds so satisfying. There is an atmospheric dynamic to this track, and it is so unique. I love Ari's vocals and the vocal melody. It just flows so beautifully, and the transition into the next track is wonderful. One of my favourite moments on a pop record this year. Track 8, Warning Signs Interlude. This is absolutely stunning. I think this interlude could have been flashed out further because it's too short. I know it's an interlude, and Ari always delivers great interludes, and it creates a seamless sonic chapter coming from the previous track Freak. She packs a lot into the lyrics with acknowledging the red flags and accountability with her past choices. The toxic cycle of hot and cold behaviour by a partner, and eventually she has that final realization. The interlude ends with a blunt, empowering shift in perspective with the line, "You don't deserve me. You know you don't. You never have." I love the "my pain is music. Do you hear me everywhere" line. Music is Ari's therapy, but at the same time, her pain and suffering bleeds into the public domain for entertainment. I adore the production and how it switches up towards the end. I was waiting for an explosion of some sort, and I'm wondering if this will be extended slightly with a deluxe version of the album. It definitely has the potential. Track 9, Like I Do. Sonically, this track takes me back to classic Ariana. It's got a highly rhythmic bounce about it, and Ari's vocal melody floats over the top. You can hear the dark synths in the production, but I would say this leans more into R&B. I will be honest, this took a few listens for it to fully click with me. I enjoy this lyrically, and it contains some of the best lyrics on the entire record. I love the line in the first verse, "Keep my heels tall, my ego small, but I'm still grande." That is one way to brush off outside noise and to carry on with your head held high. She takes a direct swipe at the critics and tabloids who continue to write about her and speculate. "I'm making sense off your nonsense. All that shit talk keeps me well fed, through thick and thin. You're so locked in. You hate to love me." Ari is directly calling out the press and haters that literally fund her empire. Even the line in the chorus of "No one fucks you like I do" takes on a double meaning. Ari could be saying to her ex partner that no one fucks him like she can. Again, bringing the confident sexual dominance that was explored in Big Feelings. Or she could be saying that no other pop star dominates the media cycle or plays the villain role for the public quite like she can. It's not one of my highlights from the record. My taste just prefers the dark electronic synth sound compared to the R&B. However, I do enjoy the track lyrically, and I think it will be one that has the potential to grow over time. Track 10, Never Get Over Me. Okay, I will be completely honest. This track really isn't working for me. I've given it several listens now and it still isn't grabbing me. I do like the twinkling synths in the intro. It gave me Christmas vibes, which I welcome. I appreciate what Ari is going for here. It's got a retro R&B vibe, but sonically this track just isn't my cup of tea. By the time we get to track 10, I feel that Ari has already beautifully and thoroughly expressed her confidence and dominance, and this track doesn't really offer anything new. The production is still great, and I am not going to shit all over a track for the sake of it, but at the same time, I will be honest if something isn't clicking with me. Ari still sounds lovely, but at this stage in the record, I was expecting a little bit more. I will stay patient with it, and you never know, I might have a different opinion about it when we get to the end of the year. You'll just have to stay tuned. Track 11, Bad Thing, Bunny Hop. Okay, now we're back. I really wasn't expecting this kind of sound from Ari. as it does give you sonic whiplash from the rest of the tracks. But I love that. I always appreciate unexpected moments on a record that completely come out of nowhere. As soon as the track started, it reminded me of something from Olivia Rodrigo's latest project. The indie pop rock sound is something that I wouldn't associate with Ari, but to be honest, it really suits her, and I hope she explores this genre further in the future. I also think Ari is playing homage to The Weeknd. As I mentioned earlier, they have collaborated quite a few times now, and this track also reminds me of Abel's indie pop rock moments like Save Your Tears or Less Than Zero. There is a driving tempo in this track that I absolutely love, and I guarantee that this track will be on repeat for me. It's completely my bag in every way. My only gripe, and I have read other people saying the same thing, is Ari's enunciation. In Eternal Sunshine, she was crystal clear, but with Bunny Hop, I was struggling to hear the lyrics, especially in the chorus. Her vocals seem to melt into the instrumentation, and this is probably a creative choice. Ariana often treats her voice like a literal instrument rather than a tool for storytelling. She prioritizes the rhythm, the vowels, and the melodic bounce of the chorus over clear diction, even though it can be frustrating. Just make sure you have the lyrics handy for this one. I also love that the synths used to close out the song circle back to Hate That I Made You Love Me. A real nice, clever touch there. Track 12, Nowhere, Nobody. The thing that leapt out to me during this track is what feels like an obvious homage to her musical hero, Imogen Heap, in this track, and I'm here for it. It is the perfect album closer, and to close out Petal in this fashion completes the rebirth loop that I mentioned in track 1, Kiss Me. What I love is the production in the chorus with the vocoder and harmonizing. This is the experimental edge to the record, and I adore Ari's vocals, which are morphed and stacked through a vocoder. This mirrors Imogen Heap's vocal and production technique, especially with her masterpiece Hide and Seek. Another standout element in this track is how Ari sings. So, deep breaths, honey, there's no more running. The deep breaths especially reminded me of Eternal Sunshine's title track. I feel like Ari is making a callback here where she sings deep breaths, tight chest, life, death, rewind. Ari is no stranger documenting her battle with anxiety, and that is something that I really admire her for. Her 2018 song Breathing tackles anxiety and panic attacks, and Ari expresses it so beautifully. Breathing is one of my favourite Ari songs, and I found a lot of comfort in that song. It feels that Ari has made the decision to close out Petal, finding her inner peace. After fighting the critics, haters, ex partners, she brings the entire narrative of the album to a peaceful, quiet close. Using Imogen Heap's avant garde style to fade into the background, she's choosing to stay in the present. I feel the there's no more running line is Ari's mantra, and despite the uncertainty, she will deal with whatever comes her way, and to remember that the bad times don't last forever. So, where does that leave me with Petal? Well, for the most part, I found this to be a really enjoyable record with some great songwriting and production, but I also think it's an album that will benefit enormously from repeated listens. There are details buried within these songs that warrant further exploration, and Petal isn't necessarily a record where you're going to catch everything the first time around. Instead, I think this is an album that will slowly reveal itself and perhaps appropriately continue to bloom over time. I've already seen some criticism surrounding the lack of those huge powerhouse vocals that we know Ariana is capable of, and I do understand that. But I also think the restraint here is deliberate. Her softer vocal approach blends beautifully with the darker, moodier synth production, and rather than constantly reaching for the big vocal moment, Ariana often chooses to become part of the atmosphere instead. And this is why I always think we need to be a little patient with new music. There can be such a rush to decide whether an album is brilliant or terrible within hours of its release, when some records simply need time to fully digest. I'm not saying Petal is perfect, because for me it isn't, but I do think there's enough depth here to make me curious about how my relationship with it might change over the coming weeks and months. Tracks like Kiss Me, Hate That I Made You Love Me, Oh Well, Freak, Warning Signs, Bad Thing, and Nowhere Nobody are my instant highlights, and I can't wait to sit with this record more over the next few months. Maybe Petal will eventually be regarded as one of those records that wasn't completely understood or appreciated when it first arrived. Perhaps several years from now, people will return to it and hear something they missed the first time around. Only time will tell, but for now, I'm quite happy to let Petal bloom. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you could follow, like, or share, as it helps other music lovers discover my podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the Indie Pop Girl podcast. It really helps the algorithm push the video out to more people, and as a small independent podcast that's still growing, every like and subscription genuinely makes a huge difference. I'm posting full episodes, shorts and little teasers over there, so there's always something new to watch. Let me know in the comments if you love this record, and if you don't love this record, and what tracks have you been playing on repeat. I always read and respond to comments, and I love hearing what you all think. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at The Indie Pop Girl, and on TikTok at The Indie Pop Girl Podcast. And if you want to dive even deeper, there's a public Spotify playlist called Favourite Tracks from Podcast Episodes, where I add some of my top picks from each record I cover. It's updated as new episodes drop, so you might just find your next obsession. I will be back next week with the introduction to my brand new series. I'll be teasing the first episode on my socials shortly, so make sure you're following me. Until then, I'm Rachel, the Indie Pop Girl. Thanks for listening, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.